The sound of her broken heel echoed louder than the office chatter. Ivy West grimaced as she leaned against the sleek glass doors of Sterling Motors, her stiletto wobbling beneath her. It was already a humiliating day, and now this. A dozen sharply dressed employees walked by, pretending not to notice a disheveled woman in heels, clutching her resume folder like a lifeline. "Stand properly." "I'll help you," said a calm male voice behind her. Startled, Ivy turned around. A man, modestly dressed in a navy shirt and brown trousers, knelt in front of her. He gently took her shoe, examined it, and peeled off the damaged heel cap. "Your high heels are broken, miss," he said. "Don't wear stilettos if you're driving. Flat shoes are safer." I don't wear flats," she snapped, brushing hair from her eyes. "I only wear heels." He chuckled softly and handed her the shoe. "There, now it's a flat." She stared at him, half annoyed, half amused. "Hold on to me," he said as she tested her balance. "You okay?" She nodded slowly. "Thanks. Ethan Lane." He extended his hand. She hesitated, then shook it. There was something refreshing about him. No pretense. Just real. Inside Sterling Motors, the grand dealership lobby buzzed with activity. Ivy followed Ethan inside, grateful the receptionist didn't iron now shorter heel. They both handed in their CVs. Within minutes, they were ushered into a conference room. A woman in a navy pantsuit and heels stood at the head of the table. She exuded authority, with not a strand of hair out of place. "I'm Charlotte Green," she said, flipping through their resumes. "Let's begin." Charlotte glanced between them. "Do either of you have experience in sales?" Ethan spoke first. "During university, I worked part-time at a computer shop. I sold 60 computers in a single month." Charlotte raised an eyebrow. "Impressive. And you?" Ivy cleared her throat. "I've sold digital commercial items online, mostly virtual goods." "Selling virtual swords is not the same as selling real cars," Charlotte muttered. "You do realize Sterling Motors is one of the top 4 luxury car branches in the country? Most of the applicants today had at least 4 years of experience. Some are top sales executives in their current firms." Ethan leaned forward. "We may not have that kind of experience, but we're fast learners. Our major was automotive engineering. We understand cars inside and out." Charlotte stared at him. "I saw the Maserati parked outside," Ethan continued. "The Gran Turismo. It's more than a car. It's art. Italian engineering. Sleek design. Its engine sings." Just like he stopped short, blushing. Well, like something worth chasing. Ivy stared at him, amused. Where did this poetic side come from? Charlotte raised one perfectly arched brow. "A little dramatic, but honest. Still, I need time to decide." As she gathered her files, Ethan stood. "I don't care what the salary is," he said softly. "I just want to work here because I love cars." Charlotte paused. "We're here to sell cars," she said. "Car lovers like you often get too attached. That's not always good for business." "Even so," Ivy said quickly, "I'd rather work with someone passionate than someone who just wants a paycheck." Charlotte's eyes lingered on Ivy. "What's your name again?" "Ivy West." Charlotte walked past her, then turned. "Come to the office at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Both of you." "Wait, are we hired?" Ivy asked, stunned. Charlotte gave a curt nod. "Don't be late. And, Miss West, don't break other people's shoes without permission next time." Ivy blushed. So she saw the shoe repair incident. After the interview, Ivy and Ethan sat at a nearby cafe. She looked at him sideways, sipping her tea. "You saved my heel," she said quietly. "You saved me from flunking that interview. Your timing was perfect." They clinked mugs in a silent toast. The next morning, Ivy arrived early, dressed in a sharp navy dress, her hair tied in a sleek bun. To her surprise, Ethan was already there, organizing pamphlets and brochures. "You're early," she said. "Couldn't sleep. Too excited." Charlotte entered a few minutes later, her expression unreadable. "Good. You're here. Follow me." They passed rows of polished cars and entered a glass-walled meeting room. A client stood inside, tall, confident, mid-40s, with salt and pepper hair and designer cufflinks. "This is Mr. Cole Bennett," Charlotte said. "He bought a Gran Turismo yesterday. Today he wants a refund." "But why?" Ethan asked. "The suspension feels stiff," Bennett said curtly, "and the engine's too loud." "It's a sports car," Ethan said before he could stop himself. Bennett narrowed his eyes. Charlotte gave him a warning look, but instead of apologizing, Ethan stepped closer. "Sir," he said, glancing at Bennett's expensive leather shoes and gold golf cufflinks, "you play golf." Bennett blinked. "How did you know?" "You look like someone who values control and grace, on and off the field. The Gran Turismo's engine is meant to sound loud. That's not a flaw, it's passion. Power. You don't just drive this car. You own it." Ivy watched in awe. Was this the same Ethan? Bennett slowly smiled. "You know what? I think I'll keep it." After he left, Charlotte turned to Ethan. "Where did you learn to read people like that?" "I just listen." She hesitated. "There's something natural about you. Keep it up." As Charlotte left, Ivy turned to Ethan. "That was amazing." He grinned. "Beginner's luck." Ivy smiled, but inside, a strange emotion stirred. For once, she wasn't the sharpest person in the room, and oddly enough, she didn't mind. Little did they know, this moment would ignite more than just a career path. It would unravel secrets, ambitions, and a connection neither of them could deny. The hum of luxury engines echoed faintly through the showroom as Ivy West adjusted the collar of her cream blazer and tried to keep her cool. This wasn't college anymore. This was Sterling Motors, a battleground of polished ambition and invisible expectations. She glanced at Ethan Lane, who stood by the office window, nervously straightening tie clips on his clipboard like he was about to be graded. He looked painfully ordinary in comparison to the other sales reps in their tailored suits and leather-bound notebooks, but somehow he still stood out. Their first day had barely begun when Miss Charlotte Green summoned them into her glass-walled office. "I have a new assignment," Charlotte said, eyes sharp. "We've received a lead from Maxwell Holdings. They're looking to purchase fleet vehicles for their executive team." Ethan's brows lifted. "That's a big client." Charlotte nodded. "Yes, and I'm assigning both of you to handle it." Ivy's jaw nearly dropped. "Us? Together? You're the only two with no ongoing cases. Besides," Charlotte added, scribbling something in her planner, "if you're going to survive here, you might as well learn how to work under pressure." "But we've just—" Ivy began. "No objections," Charlotte said. "The client contact is Mr. Vincent Rowe. He's demanding, traditional, and detail-obsessed. The kind who notices if your cufflinks don't match your tie pin." Ethan fumbled at his collar reflexively. "Make a good impression," Charlotte finished. "You're not just selling cars. You're selling trust." As they walked out of the office, Ivy shot Ethan a skeptical glance. "You ever pitched a CEO before?" "I've pitched my mom to buy a second-hand bicycle. Pretty sure that counts." She smirked despite herself. Later that afternoon, they arrived at the Maxwell Holdings Tower, 12 floors of marble, glass, and silent elevators. The receptionist led them to a long conference room where Vincent Rowe was already waiting, flanked by 2 assistants. Vincent was a man of immaculate detail. Gray 3-piece suit, gold-rimmed glasses, silver pocket square folded with military precision. His expression didn't shift an inch as Ivy and Ethan introduced themselves. "Let's be clear," Vincent said, flipping through the glossy brochure. "We're not interested in noise or flash. We need executive sedans, comfort, performance, prestige. No gimmicks." "Understood," Ivy said, her voice steady. "We believe the Lincoln Continental and the Quattraport S could meet your expectations. We prepared a breakdown." Vincent raised a hand. "Skip the sales pitch. Show me results." Ivy handed over their custom pricing sheet. Ethan, meanwhile, noticed a subtle tremor in the assistant's hand as she passed the coffee. Nervous staff. Tension in the air. Something wasn't right. "We've also included post-sale service guarantees," Ethan added gently. "Pickup maintenance, emergency assistance, quarterly reports." Vincent finally looked up. "You did your research." We wanted to earn your trust, Ethan replied. Not just your money. For the first time, the older man gave a thin smile. Let me think about it. I'll call you in 2 days. As they left the office, Ivy turned to Ethan. You're good with people. Way better than I thought. He shrugged. I just watch, listen, and try not to screw up. She laughed. Then her phone buzzed. Text message. From unknown. He's not who you think he is. Be careful who you trust at Sterling. Ivy frowned. The number was unfamiliar. She tucked the phone away, heart beating faster. Back at Sterling Motors, the atmosphere had shifted. Charlotte sat alone in her office, staring at a photo frame turned face down on her desk. When Ethan knocked, she straightened. Yes. We just got back from Maxwell Holdings. I think it went well. She nodded, but her eyes lingered on him longer than necessary. You remind me of someone. Ethan tilted his head. Should I be worried? No. He was good, honest, too honest for this place. Who was he? Charlotte looked away. A long time ago. Not relevant. But as Ethan left, she opened her desk drawer and pulled out an old photo. It was a younger Charlotte, arm in arm with a man who looked strikingly like Ethan. She stared at the image, her jaw tight. That evening, Ivy sat in her tiny apartment, staring at the message on her phone again. She called her best friend, Riley, who answered with a yawn. Ivy, what now? Someone sent me a warning about Sterling. Said someone isn't who they claim to be. That's vague. But something feels off. There's tension in that office. Charlotte's watching Ethan weirdly. And I overheard her on the phone. She mentioned someone named Victor. Okay, maybe she's just stressed. Or hiding something. Maybe it's Ethan? Ivy paused. That thought hadn't crossed her mind. No, Ethan's too innocent, genuine, Ivy said quietly. But what if that's the act? The next day, things got stranger. The Maxwell Holdings deal was approved. Vincent Rowe personally sent a message commending Ethan and Ivy's professionalism. The entire office was buzzing. Ethan was suddenly the golden boy of Sterling. Ivy stood beside him, equally praised, yet strangely uneasy. Charlotte called them both in. Well done, she said. I've decided to promote Ethan to associate lead for fleet sales. Ivy blinked. Wait, what? Ivy, Charlotte continued. You're staying on the Maxwell account. Ethan will move to the executive division. As they exited the office, Ivy was silent. Ethan noticed. You okay? She forced a smile. Fine. Congrats, Mr. Rising Star. He frowned. Hey, I didn't ask for this. I didn't even know about it. Of course you didn't. Ivy, it's fine. Seriously. She turned and walked away, her heart pounding. A promotion this fast? Something wasn't adding up. Later that night, Ivy's phone rang again. A new number. If you want the truth about Ethan Lane, look into the HR archives. Search for Elijah Green. She froze. Green, as in Charlotte Green? Her fingers trembled. She opened her laptop, and as the employee database loaded, the name Elijah Green appeared. Former intern. Unlisted resignation. And the photo attached was Ethan Lane. Ivy West sat at her desk the next morning, staring blankly at the Sterling Motors logo on her screen. The discovery from the night before kept replaying in her head. Ethan Lane was once Elijah Green, the same last name as Charlotte, and the face in the archived photo, unmistakably Ethan. Younger, hair longer, smile less guarded, but still Ethan. She tapped her pen rhythmically, her gut twisting. Good morning. A familiar voice said behind her. Ethan. She turned, pasting on a smile. Morning. He stood awkwardly, holding 2 paper cups. I got you your usual. Extra cream, no sugar. Ivy hesitated. He was trying. Thoughtful, genuine as always. Or maybe expertly pretending. Thanks, she said, taking the cup without looking him in the eye. Ethan shifted on his feet. You okay? You seemed off yesterday. I'm fine, she replied coolly. Congrats on the promotion again. He frowned. I didn't want to like that. Charlotte just pulled me in and told me. I didn't even know I was being considered. Ivy turned slowly. And she didn't mention your previous connection to the company? Ethan blinked. What? Elijah Green, she said. Ring a bell? His face changed. A flicker of guilt. Then silence. I did my homework, she continued. You interned here 3 years ago under a different name. Same face. Same eyes. Same last name as our boss. So what's the truth, Ethan? He took a step back, rubbing his jaw. Okay, you're right. I didn't tell you because I didn't want people to think I got in through favoritism. So you are related to Charlotte? She's my aunt, he admitted. But I didn't use her name this time. I applied under a different surname. I wanted to earn it myself. Ivy folded her arms. That's noble, except she still gave you a promotion you didn't apply for. I swear I didn't ask her for anything. But you didn't stop her either. He looked pained. I've been trying to step out of her shadow for years. When I was Elijah Green, everyone assumed I got everything handed to me. So I walked away, changed my name, started over. Ivy didn't respond. She didn't know if she believed him. Her heart warred with her head. The Ethan she knew was kind, attentive, honest. But Elijah Green, a shadow of privilege, Aunt Charlotte's secret heir. She needed air. Meanwhile, Charlotte Green sat in her office, staring out the window. Her phone buzzed. A message from HR. Employee Ivy West access to 2020 archive file. Elijah Green. She closed her eyes, fingers tapping against her coffee cup. She had warned Ethan to keep a low profile, to separate himself from the past. But Ivy was smart. Too smart. Charlotte stood and walked toward the showroom, watching Ethan and Ivy from afar. She knew that look on Ivy's face. Conflict, confusion, the seed of mistrust. And if there was one thing she couldn't afford right now, it was a rising star imploding in scandal. Her phone rang. Charlotte speaking. This is Vincent Rowe. The voice said crisply, We'd like to place a second order. Your associate Ethan Lane impressed the board. We want him assigned exclusively to our account. Her pulse spiked. That's wonderful news. But I also want a full profile on his background. He's good. Too good for someone with zero formal experience. Charlotte's knuckles tightened. Of course, she said. As she hung up, she knew what was coming. The secret she buried 3 years ago wouldn't stay buried. Not anymore. That afternoon, Ivy walked into the employee lounge to find Ethan alone, seated by the window with a cold cup of coffee untouched. He looked up. You're avoiding me. I needed time to think. And I believe you didn't ask for the promotion, she admitted. But I don't know what else you're hiding, or what your aunt's hiding. Ethan stared at her, jaw tightening. When I interned here, I found something I wasn't supposed to see. Charlotte had just taken over the branch from her predecessor, my grandfather. There were shady financials, rigged sales bonuses, and 2 employees who got let go for trying to speak up. Ivy leaned in, her heart pounding. Are you saying she's corrupt? I don't know, Ethan said, but she covered something. And then I disappeared from the company records. So you came back to investigate? I came back to find the truth. But I didn't expect to care so much about the job again. Or to meet someone who made me forget I ever had a plan. Ivy looked at him carefully. And if you find proof of wrongdoing, what then? I'll expose it, he said quietly, even if she's my aunt. A long silence settled between them. You know, Ivy finally said, you could have told me this in the beginning. I was afraid you'd walk away. Maybe I still will. She stood and left. Later that night, Ivy received another anonymous message. You've only seen part of it. Ask Charlotte about the Axton file. Axton? Ivy opened her laptop again. This time, she didn't go through HR. She used Charlotte's old assistant's backdoor login, one she had accidentally seen weeks ago. She searched Axton file, and there it was, an encrypted folder, employee records, performance reviews, and buried deep inside, termination report, Elijah Green, date, 3 years ago. Reason: data breach. Unauthorized access to executive reports. Ivy's eyes widened. They had blacklisted him. Charlotte had lied to him. He hadn't walked away. He had been forced out. Just then, a knock on her door startled her. It was Ethan. "Ivy," he said breathlessly, "I know the truth. My aunt, she's being blackmailed." "What?" He stepped inside. She didn't cover things up because she wanted to. She did it to protect the company. There's someone else behind it. Someone higher up. Ivy frowned. "Who?" But before he could answer, both their phones rang at the same time. Unknown caller. They glanced at each other, then answered. A distorted voice said the same thing in unison through both lines. "Stop digging. Or the next file won't be about the past. It'll be about your future." Click. The line went dead. The threat echoed in Ivy's ears long after the call ended. "Stop digging. Or the next file won't be about the past. It'll be about your future." She and Ethan stared at each other across her small kitchen table, the only light coming from the glow of her laptop screen and the soft amber lamp in the corner. It was nearly midnight, but neither of them could sleep. "I guess that confirms it," Ethan said quietly. "We're not imagining things." "They know we're close," Ivy replied, rubbing her arms. "Whoever's behind this is watching us." Ethan leaned forward. "We have 2 choices now. Walk away, pretend nothing happened, or keep going." Ivy met his gaze. "We're already too far in to turn back." He smiled faintly. "Did I mention I'm glad it's you I'm doing this with?" Ivy looked down, warmth creeping into her cheeks. "I still don't trust you completely." "Fair." She pushed her laptop toward him. "You said Charlotte's being blackmailed." "By who?" He hesitated. "There's a name that keeps coming up in the executive meeting logs. A silent shareholder who owns 6% of Sterling's parent company. No photos. No bio. Just a name. Victor Ray." Ivy narrowed her eyes. "Why does that sound familiar?" "I don't know yet, but if he's the one pulling strings, we need to figure out what he's holding over Charlotte." They dug deeper into the Axton folder. Hidden among reports and encrypted PDFs, Ivy stumbled across an old email chain. It was between Charlotte and a former accountant named Leslie Parker, dated 2 years ago. "Charlotte, we need to reclassify those invoices. If the board sees them, the audit will trigger disciplinary review. Leslie, this could cost me my license. Charlotte, do it, or Victor will find someone else." Ivy leaned back in her chair. She was covering financial fraud, and Victor was forcing her hand. But why her? Ethan murmured. Why would she take the fall? The next day at Sterling Motors was unusually quiet. Charlotte's office blinds were drawn. Ethan was back in the executive sales corner, shaking hands with clients. Ivy sat at her desk, typing up a report she wasn't reading, her eyes flicking constantly towards Charlotte's door. Then a message appeared on her screen. From C. Green. Subject: coffee? My office. 3:15 p.m. Come alone. Her stomach twisted. At exactly 3:15, Ivy knocked once and stepped inside. Charlotte sat behind her desk, her expression unreadable. "I know you've been investigating me," she said calmly. Ivy stayed standing. "And I know about Elijah Green." Charlotte's gaze didn't falter. "You also know I didn't fire him willingly." Ivy blinked. "So you admit it?" Charlotte sighed. "Yes, I blacklisted him. I buried his file. I erased his name. Because Victor Ray told me to." "But why?" Ivy asked. Charlotte stood and walked to the window. "Ethan's father, my brother, was a whistleblower in a different branch years ago. He exposed Ray's embezzlement scheme. A week later, he died in a suspicious accident. No evidence. No inquiry. Just gone." Ivy's breath caught. "And Ethan," she whispered, "Ethan found a trail of the same corruption here. I begged him to stop, told him to disappear. I leaked a termination notice to protect him, to get him out quietly. You didn't tell him the truth." "I couldn't," Charlotte said, turning around. Her eyes, for once, looked tired. He would have stayed and fought, and they would have buried him too. Ivy stared at her. Then why bring him back now? Charlotte looked away. Because I'm running out of time. Victor is planning something big. He wants Sterling Motors sold off to an overseas investor. Ethan's the only one who can stop him, but not as Elijah Green, as Ethan Lane. Silence settled in the office like dust. Charlotte walked to her desk and handed Ivy a file. Everything I have on Victor Ray. Keep it safe. Use it if I disappear. Ivy hesitated. Why me? Because you care about Ethan, and he listens to you. She walked out without another word. That evening, Ivy and Ethan met at an old car club garage Ethan used to frequent, now his sanctuary. The garage smelled like grease and rubber, with posters of vintage Mustangs and Ferraris on the wall. Ethan handed her a wrench. I thought you hated manual labor, he joked. I make exceptions for traders with secrets and charm, she teased. As they worked on an old Ford Shelby together, she told him everything Charlotte had revealed. Ethan dropped the wrench. She knew all this? My father, the threats? She did it to protect you. He turned away, jaw clenched. She made me feel like a failure, like I'd been rejected. She made a choice, a painful one. He sank onto the garage stool. And Victor Ray? We need to find proof before he sells off the company. They sat in silence, surrounded by rusted tools and whispering engines. Then Ivy did something she hadn't planned. She reached for his hand. I believe you now, she said quietly. Ethan looked at her. I never stopped believing in you. Their hands stayed clasped, grease and all. The next morning, they returned to the office to find it buzzing. Charlotte was gone. Not fired, not on leave, vanished. Her office was empty. Her desk cleared, her laptop wiped. A memo had gone out at 6 a.m. Effective immediately, Charlotte Green has resigned due to personal reasons. Ethan Lane will be interim manager. Ethan read the message 3 times before slumping into his chair. They got to her. Ivy whispered. A man in a black suit entered the office moments later, flanked by 2 executives. Everyone, he announced, I'm Victor Ray. Effective today, I'll be overseeing transition operations at Sterling Motors. Ivy's blood went cold. Victor smiled thinly at Ethan. I've heard a lot about you, Mr. Lane. Ethan stood. Then I'm sure you know I'm not going to roll over. Victor chuckled. That's the spirit. We'll get along just fine. As he turned, he added, one piece of advice? Don't go digging up the past. It has a nasty habit of burying the present. Then he walked out, leaving silence in his wake. Ivy turned to Ethan. What do we do now? He exhaled, steadying himself. We hit back. The air inside Sterling Motors felt different, denser, colder. Since Victor Ray's sudden appearance, the atmosphere had shifted. Gone were the casual hallway greetings and the subtle hum of teamwork. Now, silence stalked the corridors like a predator, and every employee walked a little faster, spoke a little softer, and avoided eye contact with a man in the dark suit who had taken Charlotte's place. Ethan Lane sat behind her former desk, now his. He hadn't touched a thing. Her framed certificates still leaned against the window. The seat still held her outline. But she was gone, vanished, and no one dared speak her name. Ivy West entered quietly, a manila folder in her hands. You asked for yesterday's performance figures. He nodded but didn't reach for them. She placed the folder down. Still no word from Charlotte? Ethan shook his head. Her numbers disconnected. Her apartment's empty. It's like she was erased. Ivy sat in the chair across from him. You think Victor made her disappear? He did it before with my dad. Ivy reached into her bag and pulled out a small flash drive. I found this, hidden under the lining of Charlotte's old desk drawer. It's unmarked. Ethan stared at it like it might explode. Have you checked it? No. I figured we'd do it together. He plugged it into his laptop. The screen flickered. Then a folder appeared. Engine 8.0. Inside was a series of encrypted documents. Ethan clicked the first. Sterling Internal Audit. Victor Ray Conflict of Interest. It was a full report. Victor Ray had signed off on multiple offshore wire transfers to shell companies connected to vehicle part suppliers. Parts that never arrived. Millions had been siphoned from the company. Ethan clicked the next file. Affidavit from Leslie Parker. It was a statement, sworn and notarized, detailing how Victor had forced multiple employees to reclassify funds and fabricate accounts under the threat of job termination and blackmail. Ivy's hands flew to her mouth. This is enough to bury him. Ethan's eyes darkened. We need to go public. With what? A press release? She asked. This isn't just corporate fraud. It's dangerous. People disappear. He paused, then pulled out his phone. I know someone who can help, he said. Her name's Angela Marks, investigative reporter. She's exposed half the auto industry over the past 5 years. Will she talk to you? She owes me a favor. That evening, Ethan and Ivy met Angela in a dim cafe off 4th Street. She was in her late 30s, glasses perched on her head, worn leather notebook in one hand. You always drag me into messes, she said, sipping burnt coffee. But this might be your biggest. She flipped through the documents on Ethan's tablet, eyes narrowing. This is damning, she muttered. Conflict of interest, misappropriation, racketeering. You're sitting on a bomb. That's why we came to you. Ivy said, we want out. The full story. Angela glanced between them. You both realize what this means, right? If I publish this, Victor won't just lose his stake. He could face criminal charges. Ethan nodded. And if he's willing to destroy people to protect himself, we're already targets. Angela leaned back. Then we do this smart. Give me 48 hours. I'll verify every line and get legal to back me up. When it drops, it'll be everywhere, from the business pages to the front cover. Ethan and Ivy exchanged a look. For the first time in days, there was hope. Later that night, they returned to Ethan's apartment, a small, modest space above a local body shop. Grease stained the stair railings. The air smelled faintly of oil and pine wood soap. Ivy walked slowly to the center of the room. You okay? Ethan asked. She nodded, just overwhelmed. He closed the door behind them. You don't have to stay. She looked at him. Do you want me to? He hesitated. I want you safe. That's all. Ivy stepped forward. I've been safe my whole life, Ethan. Careful, strategic, controlled. But I never felt alive until this. He stepped closer. Even with everything going on, especially because of it. The silence between them stretched thin until she reached for his hand. Their fingers linked, grease-stained and warm. He leaned forward, slowly, tentatively. Their lips met, soft at first, then deeper, lingering like the tension that had built for weeks. It wasn't a grand kiss. It was real, honest, an acknowledgement of everything they hadn't said. When they parted, she smiled against his chest. Well, that complicates things. I think we passed complicated 3 chapters ago. They laughed quietly, holding each other. By morning, the storm was coming. Angela had confirmed the files. Her story was already scheduled to go live the next day. Major networks had been alerted. Victor Ray's empire was about to crumble. But just before noon, something unexpected happened. An emergency board meeting was announced. All executives were summoned. Ivy and Ethan stood side by side in the company conference room, surrounded by stone-faced board members. Victor walked in, calm and confident, holding a folder. I have an announcement, he said. Effective immediately, Ethan Lane is being removed from his position for misconduct and falsification of employee identity. Gasps echoed. Ivy's chest tightened. Victor placed a printed page on the table. This, he said, is a notarized letter confirming that Ethan Lane is in fact Elijah Green, previously terminated from Sterling Motors for data theft. He returned under false identity. This invalidates every contract, every deal, every decision he's made since rejoining. Ethan stepped forward. That report was fabricated by you to silence the truth. Victor smiled coolly. What truth? That you're a disgraced intern who changed his name and used your aunt's position to climb the ladder? He turned to the board. I request an immediate vote to dismiss him and revoke his access to all company systems. One by one, hands raised. Ethan was voted out, stripped of his badge, escorted from the building. As Ivy ran after him, Victor whispered in her ear, "Tell him to stay down this time. Or next time, it won't just be his job." Ethan Lane stood on the sidewalk in front of Sterling Motors, the company badge still warm in his hand, though now utterly meaningless. He had just been publicly humiliated, removed from the company by a unanimous board vote, accused of falsifying his identity. Victor Ray's voice still echoed in his ears. "Next time, it won't just be your job." The building loomed behind him like a monument to betrayal. Ivy West stepped out moments later, breathless and furious. "You okay?" she asked. Ethan gave a hollow laugh. "Fine. Okay. I'm sorry. I tried to speak, but it wouldn't have mattered." He shoved the badge into his pocket. Victor's 10 moves ahead. He knew everything, even about my name change. Someone tipped him off. Ethan's brow furrowed. "Angela?" "No," Ivy said firmly. "She's already prepping the article. She swore no leaks. I trust her." "Then who?" She paused. And then a memory flashed in her mind. Charlotte's old assistant, the one who mysteriously transferred apartments after Ethan was rehired. His name, Dean Kellerman. "Dean," she whispered. Charlotte's assistant. He had access to her files, her drawers, everything. He was the one who forwarded the initial offer letter to HR for Ethan under the name Lane. You think he was working for Victor all along? I think he's the rat who's been feeding Victor everything. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then it's time to smoke him out. That night, they met Angela Marks again, this time in the back of a small news studio. "I've scheduled the expose to air tomorrow at 8 p.m. sharp, she said. "But it'll hit harder if someone speaks on camera." Ethan shook his head. "They already painted me as a fraud. Anything I say will look like damage control." Angela turned to Ivy. "What about you?" Ivy hesitated. Her heart pounded. "I'm not the hero here." Angela studied her. "Sometimes the hero is the one willing to speak when no one else will." Ivy looked at Ethan. He gave a small nod. "I'll do it," she said quietly. "But I want full anonymity until the last minute. And I want every document we found made public." Angela smiled. "Now you're speaking my language." The next day passed like the ticking of a bomb. Victor Ray strutted through Sterling Motors like a man who had already won. He called an all-hands meeting for 8:30 p.m., half an hour after the expose was set to air. Ivy sat at her desk, pretending to type, while her phone buzzed in her pocket. Ethan was nearby, seated in a cafe across the street, watching the entrance with binocular focus. At exactly 8 p.m., Angela's voice filled living rooms, smartphones, and laptop screens across the country. "Tonight, we expose a shadow war waged beneath the polished surface of the luxury auto industry. At the center of it, Victor Ray, silent shareholder and power broker at Sterling Motors." Ivy's interview played next. Her face shadowed, voice slightly altered. He siphoned funds through fake supplier contracts. He forced upper management to manipulate financial records. And he threatened anyone who questioned him, including Charlotte Green. Victor's name trended on social media within 20 minutes. At 8:25 p.m., Ethan crossed the street, entered the building, and walked right past security. No one stopped him. They were too busy watching their phones. He entered the conference room just as Victor was preparing to speak. "Evening, everyone," Victor said, straightening his cuffs. "I know there's been a lot of noise today." "More like truth," Ethan said, stepping forward. The room gasped. "You don't belong here," Victor snapped. "No," Ethan said, holding up a flash drive. "But this does." He plugged it into the projector. The screen lit up with Leslie Parker's affidavit, then the Sterling internal audit, then bank logs, and finally Angela's expose, streaming live. The board members stared in horror as name after name flashed, connecting Victor to accounts in Dubai, the Caymans, and Zurich. Victor's face darkened. "This is slander." Ethan smiled. "No, it's documentation." Just then, the doors opened, and in walked a woman in a gray coat, flanked by 2 officers. Gasps followed. Charlotte Green, alive, unbroken, unannounced. "Miss me?" she asked. tossing a folder on the table. "I went underground to gather the last missing piece," she said, looking at Victor. "And now, with these 2 federal agents, I'd like to make your final transaction." Victor turned pale. "You don't have the authority." "I do," Charlotte snapped. "I filed a whistleblower claim. And this," she tapped the folder, "is proof you bribed Dean Kellerman to impersonate my signature and forge Ethan's termination." Officers moved forward. Victor ran, but he didn't get far. By the time he hit the stairwell, federal agents tackled him to the ground. Ethan exhaled for what felt like the first time in weeks. Charlotte turned to the board. "I'm taking a leave of absence. But when I return, Sterling will be rebuilt." The board murmured in agreement. Someone began to clap, then another, and then the whole room erupted. Ivy stood near the back, watching it all unfold. When Ethan turned to find her, she was already walking toward him. They met in the center of the room. "You really came back," he said to Charlotte. "I never left," she said. "Just waited until it was the right time to strike." She turned to Ethan. "I should have trusted you from the beginning." Ethan smiled. "We all had things to learn." Later that night, he and Ivy stood on the rooftop of Sterling, the city lights shimmering around them. "I have a confession," Ivy said. "Do tell. I didn't think you'd pull it off." "Neither did I," Ethan replied. She stepped closer, laying her hand on his chest. "But I'm glad you did." And just like that, he kissed her again, this time without fear, without confusion, just certainty. 3 months later, Charlotte Green was reinstated as regional director. Sterling Motors rebranded with a transparency campaign that made headlines nationwide. Victor Ray was convicted of corporate fraud and sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. Ethan Lane, finally using his real name again, was offered the role of head of brand innovation. He declined. Instead, he opened his own auto consultancy firm. His first hire? Ivy West. They now ran Green West Performance, a company devoted to ethical, innovative car solutions. Their mission statement read, "Driven by passion, fueled by truth." As for love, well, they never did return that second pair of keys, because they were already building something neither of them wanted to drive away from. Together,